Databases.
You realise I'm going to publish this on the Confluence page, right? Each of these files is going straight up there. Do you want to start that again or not? Okay, databases. This is a really important page, okay? Don't touch it unless you have to. You will break stuff unless you know what you're doing. After an installation, the installation script will do its best to get you a working HRConnect, but it will not do the same thing as saving this databases tab. So it is important that when doing an installation, pretty much the first thing you should do when you log into the system as the administrator, and all that's part of the installation, choosing who the administrator is, etc. When you log in the first time, come to the databases tab and complete the process by filling it all in and hitting save, because that will put everything in encrypted values. It will make sure the system works properly. Okay, so don't just go, oh look, it works, I've installed it, it's working. That will have left stuff in a suboptimal state. Please come to this page and click save. So let's just leave it at that. Now the controls on here. You've got which instance, SQL Server instance, you need to be using. Don't forget, if they've got some custom port, you want to be getting your comma and your port name in there. Otherwise, it will assume you're on the standard SQL port. What is that, 144 or something? And if you've got SQL browser server running on the service, that's fine. It'll find it. Again, don't forget the / instance name if you've got an instance name for your server. It's kind of out of scope for me to tell you about SQL Server instances and ports and stuff. I'm just reminding you, if you've got a problem, maybe that's it. So next up, you've got the database name. Just spell it right. Quite often, I just use the F2 feature in SQL Server to copy something out and paste it in here to avoid typos. There is some basic validation on this page. If you put something in that it can't find or use, it'll tell you, nah, that's not right. But don't rely on it, just make the details right. Next up is the interesting point, right? Because Wilden has historically just used SA for everything, and that's terrible. This is the login. Not the user, the login for that SQL server that the HRConnect application will be using to access the database. On installation, the default is to create a SQL login called HRConnect, and that login on the server will be mapped to a HRConnect user in the database. Okay, if you don't know the difference between logins and username and users in the database, you should really go and study this stuff, okay, and beef up your SQL skills. And it's outside of this scope. Now, you should not be using SA, but you can, of course. You put in the password here, you put save, you put in basically the essentials that you're going to need are what probably is described as the HR Works database, because that covers HR Works, personnel, missing link, and Evo Plus. That's what it means. It means Evo Plus in modern parlance if it says HR Works. And the HRConnect databases. You need those two lines for anything to work. You don't fill them in, all bets are off. The next two ones are optional. Payroll, you would have that in a couple of instances. Shropshire have some bespoke stuff that uses the payroll system. We write to the payroll messages table, the users' login details for the online payslip site. Don't know why, but that's a paid order we've taken years ago for customization, so they'll probably have that filled in. Other clients use this to display payslips without using online payslips. In the dim and distant past, before we had online payslips, people still wanted to view their payslip data in an integrated HR self-service system and payroll system. Naturally, so we let them do it. So customers still use this. They can view their payslips if they put in the details. Don't forget that by default, the payroll database will not have a user called HRConnect, and I'd rather you made one and just gave them read-only access to that data. And if you want to be really clever about it, you could have a look at which tables that need access to. I'm afraid I can't remember that off the top of my head. But if you go and look in the payslips page, I think there's one called payslips wrapper, which then leads you onto that page. You can look at which tables, and there are many in the payroll system that the system uses. Unfortunately, it has to use lots of tables because payroll's got a very inelegant structure for being able to tell which payroll an employee was in for any particular payroll period. So the system has to do an awful lot of work just to display the current payslip and give you a back button to let you look through old ones. That's by the by. But anyway, you want to lock it on when the minimum is read-only permissions on the HRConnect account. You're doing a thorough security job, and I don't generally do this in all honesty. I just give HRConnect read access to the payroll database. Then you can secure it down by table. The next one is for the Logitime system, I believe. Is that correct? Is
correct. HRTime.
Not many people use this, but there are some bespoke reports which get turned on within absence reporting for, not bespoke, they're generic reports that get turned on for the Logitime HRTime system, whatever you want to call it. So I believe there somewhere there should be a setting of whether it's a Logitime or DBO owner for there as well. Is that control there? I don't remember getting
just got this HRTime table owner.
Yeah, that's it. HRTime table owner. That's where you're saying, because some databases it's been installed as DBO, and other ones it's been installed as Logitime, and all the tables are created under that schema. Again, you don't know what a schema is, go do your SQL revision. So HRConnect needs to know which it is. Our HRTime consultant will understand what that means, but it's basically other tables created under the Logitime or DBO schema. Set all that up. When you hit save, all the recreate link use stuff will run, and these reports will appear within the absence page, which is absence information, as it's known as in the menu structure. Absence-page.asp is its code name. There are also some incredibly sophisticated and beautiful reports for HJ Eindhoven, which also get enabled under this setting, because they've got all sorts of bank time and exceptions reporting there, well outside of the scope of this discussion to talk about those in detail. The lower controls are to do with archiving. Almost no one has this set up or turned on, but I've used it and it works and it's good. And basically it just ships data out of the HRConnect database and into an HRConnect archive database, much a sort of GDPR type way, if you then deleted your archive. And really the purpose was for performance and for cleanliness. So after a certain number of years, people would get an awful lot of data in their systems to aid performance. We'll remove it out of the core tables that are being used. This takes place in an archive process triggered by the overnight script. Yeah, very seldom used, but a fair amount of coding's gone into it, and it seems to work okay whenever I have used it.
HRWorks DB type?
This is an HRWorks DB type. Oh, is that HRWorks or Antares, isn't it?
HRWorks Antares, HRWorks Evolution, HRWorks Personnel.
Yeah, okay, so that's telling it which type of HR database you're attaching it to. Only use HRWorks Antares in version 5. Really, we should hard code that and get rid of it, because we no longer support any of the other versions. Historically, we were incredibly clever and could support Personnel, Missing Link, and Evo Plus Antares in the same code base in HRConnect. Well, there was no longer a business requirement to do it, so as I've gone through the code and found branches that are specific to the other programs, I've taken them out, but we haven't done a root and branch tidy up. So there'll still be branches of code that are just never used in version 5 that belong to those other database types. Like I said, when I've seen them where I'm in a code area, I've removed them as part of the code tidy. So there's far less than there was. Bear that in mind if you're ever looking at the code.
Advanced absence DB type?
Hasn't been used for probably a decade, so it should always be set to personnel. It may still work, I couldn't tell you, never needed to use it. In very old days, Some customers still had their Wilden OSP data in payroll because they were payroll customers before they adopted HRWorks personnel. For whatever reason, it predated me, a decision had been made to leave it there. So this was telling HRConnect, so it probably does still work, when it's rebuilding the views to the absence tables to go to the payroll database and not the personnel one. I really don't think you need that at all. I believe that's a piece of just slowing